Lesson 4.6 is using division and the distributive property to try to find the quotients. This has to do a lot with number sense, and if students are really good with their math facts, this will be a little bit easier for them. I admit to them all the time that my number sense wasn't very good as a kid, so this would have really been a struggle for me. But the kids really are starting to really have a good understanding and have a lot of strength with this skill. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what 4.6 is about. So my first example is 90 divided by 6, and I don't see any basic facts right now, but I want to break apart 90 into numbers that are multiples of 6. And so in my head, 6 times 10 is always an easy one to try to figure out, and I know 6 times 10 is 60, so I'm going to try 60 divided by 6, and then I know 60 plus something is going to give me 90. So I'm going to do 60, I could count by tens, and then eventually kids should get to 30 divided by 6. Now you want to make sure that both of these dividends the divisor goes into. And I know that 60 divided by 6 is 10. And then 30 divided by 6 is 5. And there is not a remainder, like those worked out evenly. So my final quotient is 15. This is also trying to teach them some mental math strategies. But like I said, this would have really been a struggle for me as a kid. Another example, 54 divided by 3. So I'm trying to think of multiples of 3 that would work to break 54 apart. And so again, always trying that 10. If I take 30 out, I see that 3 does fit into there. And then I know 30 plus something gives me 54. You could count by tens, 30, 40, 50. And then 4 more, that gets you 24. And this does work out nicely. Sometimes it's trial and error. You might try something first that didn't work out, but for me this is working out each time. 24 divided by 3, so then you'll go back and just check them both. 30 divided by 3 is 10. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. And so then my final quotient is 18. Kids can always check their work. They could do multiplication to see if they're getting the correct answer. I know 8 times 3 is 24. 3 times 1 plus 2 is a 54, so that did work out. One more example with the distributive property is 96 divided by 8. I'm going to think of multiples of 8 that I could take out. I like 5s and 10s, like I said before, so I'm going to try, if 8 times 5, that's 40, divided by 8. And then I need to think of what else plus 40 gets me 96. And so you could count up by tens, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, that's 50. And then 6 more is 56. Oh yeah, 8 does fit into there. So again, this one did work out. Sometimes if it doesn't, you erase and you try other numbers. 40 divided by 8 is 5. And then 56 divided by 8 is 7. You add those together to get a final quotient of 12. Now 96 divided by 8, a lot of kids are starting to know their basic facts with 12, so they might not have had to do all of this work. A couple other examples that we discussed in class is that sometimes we can do mental math if it works out perfectly. In this case, I see that 4 fits into 8 evenly, and I also see that 4 fits into 4, so I call these mental math problems. 4 times what gives you 8? Well, 4 times 2, and there's nothing left over. And then 4 times what gives you 4? 1. And so some of these are easier to compute, and I always say that I love them when I can see that that works out that way and I don't have to use the distributive property. Another few examples with that. 2 fits into 6 evenly, and 2 also fits into 8, so I'm going to go ahead and divide. 2 times 3 gets me 6, and making sure I put it in the correct place value. And then 2 times 4 gets me 8, which is right below there as well. So easier to compute. Works out pretty well. One more example. Sorry, that was the last example. Hopefully this helps with lesson 4.6. I'm not going to stress 4.6. I think the kids that have that stronger number sense will really understand this. Otherwise, I will be teaching a couple other strategies with long division and whatnot as we move on.